Hi everyone, Jonathan J. Reinhardt here of Wargaming Recon for Let's Roll Virtual Gaming Convention 2020. So, you are here because we're going to be talking with David Hill about game mastering and game master tips using, as an example, the games he's run with the Yamashiro Mountain Fort from Things from the Basement. And so I want to start off by letting you know, please leave comments to let us know if you're watching live that you're here. And also, if you have any questions or comments or things that you want to share, please put them in the comments and I will see them and I will share them with David as we go along. And then also, you should know that this is being recorded. And so we will have this available for you to watch at a later point if you so choose. You can watch this on the Wargaming Recon Facebook page, Wargaming Recon YouTube channel, and it will also end up being on letsrollcon.com. So you have that available, and just take a moment to also want to let you know about some other events and things that are happening. There are still games going on later today. So if you are available at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I believe there still is space if you want to play in Cube of Death, which is a geek trivia game that has some elements of role-playing in it. I'm playing in that, so I'm really excited about it. Mike Kafis, the GM, is amazing, and my buddy Peter Bryant is the game designer for it, and it's a really good game. And I'm looking, it looks like there are still 2 spots left available for that. And then we also have some other events that are happening coming up, so you might want to check those out as well. At 5 o'clock, I'm going to be chatting with Brianna Richardson of the Fabric Treasury. They make all sorts of really cool things, but what really stands out to me are the dice bags that they make. So she's going to be talking about that and gaming and things that she does. And then we are raising money for the Extra Life charity. Extra Life is a charity that helps to provide medical care, or rather pay for medical care that kids need when their families can't afford it. So the money here is going to be going to Boston Children's Hospital. And if you make a donation, which is completely up to you if you so choose, but if you make a donation and it's at least $10, you will have a chance to win a prize from the Fabric Treasury. So you need to make the donation and then send us like a screenshot of it and send it to letsrollcon@gmail.com. And then you can go ahead and do that and help some kids who are in need, and then also maybe get some cool stuff. And then we also have some more stuff happening at 6 o'clock. There's going to be an interview with Timothy Colonna of Trilaterum Games. Petra Bender from Things in the Basement is going to talk to him about the World of Trilaterum. And at 7 p.m., James Carpio, who's a great GM, is going to be running the Osiris Agenda. So that's a game you can watch live. It's being live streamed. It's a role-playing game that's going to be a blending of Lucky 13 and TSR's Top Secret New World Order, which is a spy game. So you can check that out and see how that goes. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the person who you're here to see, because you're not here to see me, right? Why would you want to see me? I'm boring. Don't see me. Don't talk to me. You want to hang out with and chat with our special guest. So I'd like to introduce David Hill here, who is an amazing game master and has spent a fair bit of time with the Yamashiro Mountain Fort from Things in the Basement. David, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry for the delay. Technology is always fun, and my main computer doesn't seem to like StreamYard, which is unsurprising because it doesn't seem to like a lot of things. So here we are on my iPhone, which I hope works well enough.
So your main computer must be a crotchety old man sitting on his front porch saying, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah, and it's get off my lawn, and no, you can't have that program.
So I know that you've run games at a lot of gaming conventions here in America. Do you want to mention what some of them happen to be?
So I have run games primarily at the HMGS conventions, which is the historical. I don't remember HMGS what it stands for, but it's a popular thing. I think it's Historical Miniature Gaming Society
I think you're right.
here in the East Coast in the United States. They have prior to everything going awry, three conventions a year, one in the fall, one in the spring, and then one in the summer. The big one being Historicon, and then Fall In, and then Cold Wars. So I have been going to these conventions for almost 10 years, but I didn't start running games until about a year and a half ago. So it's been a quite the change, but I think a fun one for me at least.
And more recently, you've kind of come to some fame online for running. Uh, uh, is is it actually Test of Honor that you've been running?
Yes, so it's test of honor. Fame is strong. I mean, in a relative community like this, perhaps people have known that I do it, which is I'll call it good. But yeah, so it's test of honor. I got into the game about 2 years ago. A friend of mine introduced me at one of the HMGS conventions, and I had a blast. So I got, as one does in the hobby, got very interested and very dedicated to it. So I started playing, and then actually connected with the guys who created it, and was actually one of the copy editors and play testers for version 2, which came out last summer, which I think was a great improvement on the system. Just some tweaks, but it's in my opinion one of the best games you can run at a convention.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I haven't played the new edition, but I played several games of the original that was put out through distributed rather from Warlord Games. They're not the ones who made it, but and played that, and I really enjoyed it. I have a big love for feudal Japan, and one of my all-time favorite books is Shogun by James Clavell and the miniseries. And I mean, Kurosawa, who doesn't love that kind of stuff. So this is just really cool that there's a game that does this kind of stuff with samurai, and but it's not all just samurai. I mean, you use all sorts of people, and a thing that I think is really neat is that for a lot of people, terrain was kind of tricky, right? Because it's so different from what a lot of us here in the West would do for other games, and to try to come up with stuff that you could use for that. And so then here comes York Bender and Things in the Basement, and they created some terrain for it, which was really cool, archery dojos and things like that. And then they did a Kickstarter for the Yamashiro Mountain Fort, I believe, or at least yeah, no,
I'm not.
it
I
wasn't
don't
a
think it was a
Kickstarter.
kick. It might have been. I don't think it was. I think it
No, it
was
wasn't.
just a regular release. But I actually the timing was great. The same guy who introduced me to Test of Honor actually introduced me to York Bender and Things from the Basement. And like a lot of things, once you get a taste of it, you really kind of go whole hog. So I got the entire Yamashiro line. I actually had a PowerPoint that I was going to show you. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll have pictures later in this thing.
Okay.
Um, I think I can still figure it out. But in any event, so we got into. So I met Jorg, and then he was at the same time was coming out with the Yamashiro line, which actually he worked with a Japanese expert. Um, and was able to really recreate these amazing buildings in 28 millimeter MDF, and then really do the whole fort. He also had other buildings, shrines, torii gates, some really kind of neat lanterns, and the archery dojo you mentioned, which was actually prior to the Yamashiro. So I have the whole kit and caboodle, which I have incorporated in my games. But so it was really neat because it's not like I know he was on earlier today with his barns, and I think a lot of us are used to kind of maybe European or American style buildings, and the Japanese are very different, but also visually striking, which I think was a lot of fun to put together.
No, I agree. And like you, I have the entire set for the Yamashiro Mountain Fort. There's one building I still have to put together. It's assembled. And I have some of the stuff with me for people who want to see. So this is a
Oh,
well.
the well, yeah, I love the well.
This is a great piece right here. And actually, I don't have the top on it right now, but there's a top that goes on it. But the design. So one of the things I think about York Bender's kits are the roofs, and for Japanese buildings, I think they're so iconic for that. So this here, I don't remember which building this is. Commander's house, I think. Uh, you have that style roof, which is really amazing. So you have that nice sloping that goes into it, that kind of gives it, but with the peaked edges, but then the nice sturdy build. And when you have numerous of these on the table, they're really striking. And so uh, I'm quite envious that you have the whole set. And then you also have the mountain, right? That was done by Iron Hammer Studios. No, yes, maybe. I I know I've seen pictures of the mountain for your games, but I guess I'm not sure if you have the mountain as well. But it's beautiful. Uh,
I'm sorry, Jonathan. I seem to have lost audio. I'm not able to hear you right now. Let me see if I can fix that. Apologies again.
no, that's okay. While David's working on that, uh, I will take a moment just to say that pictures of his games have been amazing. They're available online, and you can see, and it looks really cool for all of that. And it's really neat to see how people flock to it. So when you have really good terrain, it makes a difference for what people can do and see. Like I think they get drawn to it. So that's just something that's really awesome that can happen as well with that. And there's just really cool stuff that you have here for this. But I mean, I know we're talking about the train. The train's not the end all and be all here. Um, it's really about the games that David has run and some tips and tricks here with that.
So I can hear you again. So that's great timing. I lost you for a second there. But yeah. So really, I think I'd come on today to talk about the games. But I mean, games in terms of what I've learned, and I have done a PowerPoint that I think will work that can kind of go through the things. Let me see if this works. So I have. So this is a picture of my first setup at HMGS Cold Wars 2019. So um, about a year, almost a year and a quarter ago. So this is the first setup, which actually has kind of bare bones. It's a 4x4 grid, 4 players at a time. Some nice buildings from Sarissa, but this is actually before I had really met Jorg and started to acquire the buildings. So that was the first game, and then this was the next one at HMGS Historicon 2019, which has a lot of the same buildings, getting some painted, expanded in size. It was about a 10x4 table, which was actually a very fun time, but not quite where we were now. And then this is HMGS Fall in 2019, so the Mountain Fort. The Mountain Fort, I think, is a lot of fun. It features really all the buildings from Jorg Bender's Yamashiro line. So we have the guard towers stand out prominently, the walls, the gate, the house that you just showed, which I think makes for a very kind of fun thing. So a bit about the mountain, the actual mountain it sits on. It's a 4x5 mountain with 6 inches tall, weighs about 70 pounds, and it separates into 2 parts. So I get to haul this thing to conventions, which is a very strenuous thing, but we can talk about logistics in that in a second. But so that's a picture of what it is at Fallen, which was, I think, a very neat development. And then here's where we are. No, the Yamashiro Returns is the most recent variant where we have a bigger garden area and a mountain fort in kind of the central area. So as you can see, the games have expanded over the years, from just a 4x4 setup to a I think the last count, that was about 16 feet long and about still 4 feet wide, because that's kind of the optimal width. But so it's kind of been a labor of love and just a lot of labor in terms of getting these games set up.
I bet it has.
Yeah. But really, just to kind of some tips and tricks, like you had said. So how this started was really kind of coming up with the rule set I wanted to use. So I had done Test of Honor. It's actually designed for kind of a one-on-one skirmish game. And I really like it because, like you were saying, it's you can have all kinds of figures. So I have with me today some ninjas, which are fun, a mounted samurai, which, the samurai are just such beautiful miniatures. Like the detailing, having painted, Civil War troops or Napoleonic troops, samurai really take it to a whole nother level in terms of the detail and the just the intricacy of the figures and the beauty of them.
Oh, that's
And then,
gorgeous.
yeah, and then you have warrior monks, And then, I mean, I think there are in the game there are currently about 8 factions. So you have paupers, you can have warrior monks, you can have bandits. Really, a whole like Onabagesha, which were actually female warriors, which actually they made Warlord made very nice models for, along with a couple other companies, Bad Swidow or et cetera. So really, if there's anything in that period that's interesting to you, and there is a whole lot of interesting stuff, you can do it. Which and the fellows who now run it, which is Gray for Now Games, they are still coming out with new stuff. So they're launching an Eco Iki line, and the Eco Iki, for people who don't speak Japanese or know a whole lot about the period, were a kind of peasant. Well, it was actually an uprising along all levels. So you get a lot of different measures. So disaffected samurai or warrior monks or peasants really just came together to fight their overlords, and they like guns a lot. So that was so very early arquebuses and that stuff. So it's a very they're always adding new things, and there's a very active Facebook group, which is the Test of Honor group. So if you have any interest in it, please find it. So that's that. So it's really picking the game. So why Test of Honor? It's a skirmish game. You don't need a lot of figures, which was why I was initially attracted to it. So a game, even on the normal scale, is really only between, you can have as few as 7 or really probably 18 is the most common. And I showed you earlier the ninjas, they're actually on a multi-base. So these 3 fellas, and I can hold it vertically because they're all magnetized. So Jorg Bender, actually, of Things from the Basement, made these wooden bases for me. The game comes with plastic, so you can still play with the normal ones. But I like the wooden ones he made for me because they're all magnetized, and they all just magnetize right to here. And the way that casualties work is if a guy dies, you just pop him off, put him to the side. So it actually really makes, it's kind of a neat mechanic because it lets you have a few more figures, but you don't have to keep moving them. So you only, in a game, say 2 players can only have 7 bases of figures, and your more heroic guys like the samurai are individually based on larger bases, or your kind of more leader types, the actual like samurai or the heroes. So you can have 3 different types of bases, and relatively few figures. So if you're a new player and you're just getting into the Japanese period of 16th, 17th, early 17th century, it's not a high startup cost, and that's why I really liked it, because at a lot of times at conventions you'll play these great games and it's like, oh, I need 1,000 28mm Polish and French and Prussian troops to play a Napoleonics game, or I need 200 of whatever or what have you, so you can get started and get into a game with relatively low monetary and time costs, and I think that really adds to it. So you pick the game, and whatever game you pick, one lesson I learned is you go to a convention game, and we wargamers love to both have house rules and to not always know the rules that we play with as well as we like to think we do, particularly if you have a lot of interest, or you have your own variants. So what I found is, or you have completely new players. That's another wrinkle. So I've tried to streamline it down, and so what I have done is come up with so the cool thing about Test of Honor is that they have their own like quick reference sheet. It's a very simple rule set if you want it to be, and it's very in-depth and customizable if you want it to be more of a like narrative storyline. Like you can have people get upgraded weapons, you can have like a hero that goes through all these quests. And you can do that with your friend, and the game plays very quickly. 2 players that know the rules can play a game in about 45 minutes. And then if you wanted to play through all of the base scenarios that come in the main rulebook, you can do that in an evening if you really wanted to, which I think is a cool feature. So what I've done is come up with I'm happy to send this to people because it's blurry even on my computer, is a 1-page quick reference sheet that really just kind of details like how you play the game. So I've got the combat test results in a chart I made myself. I've got like a summary of all the actions you can take, all the main modifiers that exist in the game, and then really how the mechanics work in the combat. So one thing I recommend, even if the game you're playing doesn't have it itself, come up with a 1-page cheat sheet for a new player. So I've run in the last about 15 months. Let's see, probably about 15 large-scale games of Test of Honor, and large-scale meaning 8 to 10 players. We did it in about 3 hours, and we got a result at the end of it. So we got through 5 or 6 full turns, which is pretty good for a convention game. Anyone that can tell you that you get through the game, that's probably a good thing. And on that note, one cool thing about Test of Honor is, unlike a lot of games, especially large scale games where you've got the you go, I go, where one side will do all their movement, they'll do all their shooting, they'll do their assault, and then an hour later the other side will get to actually do something. Test of Honor is great because you actually activate unit by unit. So I do something with my unit, the other side then gets to do something with their unit. So it's not where you're just sitting for an hour and waiting on something. And in convention games, that's killer because you get someone wandering away to the bathroom, you get someone who just gets bored, or you have younger kids or even grown adults who just can't pay attention if they're not doing something for 20 minutes. So that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned at convention games is keeping people involved. And that's why I love Test of Honor, because you do an activation. You activate a samurai, he charges, he tries to kill somebody, he either succeeds or fails, and then it's the next guy's turn. And then they get to do something. So it's very fast paced, it's very action oriented, and it's a very simple mechanics to get them to do that. And as you saw a few minutes ago from the escalation of the terrain and the escalation of the figures, you can kind of start with maybe 50 figures and run it for 4 players and just some unpainted terrain. It looks pretty even unpainted. And then you can graduate to paying Iron Hammer Studios of Maine. They actually made the mountain for me. I didn't do it because I live in Manhattan, and I would have gotten broken up with my living fiance if I tried to do that here. And when it was delivered to me, she said, that is not staying here. And I said, you're right. So I now have a storage unit in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania for all of my terrain and related materials because they don't fit here in Manhattan.
I love it.
That's another tip. In order to preserve matrimonial harmony, don't have all your stuff at home, because she also doesn't know how crazy this is, which is good. So that's really, I think, the key. Though she is supportive. She is supportive of the hobby. She does know I do it, but all the terrain just wouldn't fit. So you can do it at a relatively low investment. And one thing I'll plug, which I think is really neat, is that Things from the Basement does the line. You can get it from their website. But there's an outfit called Foreground, which is spelled F and then ground, that actually entered into a consortium with Jorg and does pre-painted versions of his stuff. So if you don't want to really paint terrain, I don't like painting terrain. I like painting figures, but I just can't get into it. I don't know why. It's just not my thing. And I saw your interview with him earlier, which makes me very sad because I'm gonna have to pay someone money to paint me some Gettysburg Farm buildings. But that's an aside. So if you want pre-painted version of these excellent Yamashiro buildings or the other Japanese terrain that Jorg does, Foreground actually does pre-painted versions, which really can save you a lot of time if it's just not your thing. So I would recommend that to people that are interested, and they actually make very nice village buildings, which is what I had in the foreground of the other pictures that I had earlier. So I know that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but that is why that is kind of what the origins of my tips is. Pick a game that works for kind of an environment that you can't really control. I know a lot of us have our gaming groups or know people, and conventions are a little different because you get mostly random strangers. I've been flattered that I've had people. Actually, I've had 3 or 4 guys that have come to every game that I've run. Not every game. Every convention they played the first time and kept coming back. So that's very flattering. But in a weekend, I might have 60 new players, and that, which is not uncommon. And I don't know any of them. They all have varying interests. They all have varying hobby backgrounds. So that's the thing, is pick something that you can explain reasonably in about 15 minutes to a complete stranger. And that it really just kind of goes into the preparation. A lot of the time when I first started, I didn't really get that I couldn't just be like, okay, here's the game, have fun. You actually have to have like a pitch, like why is this fun, like for 30 seconds, and then you lay out the rules, and then you get started pretty quickly. Because the longer I found that you try and like lecture people on like the art, well, In this terrain, the movement rate is 2/3, but in this terrain, the movement rate is 1/3. You're going to start losing them. They're going to start forgetting, and then it's just not going to be really the best time. So really, pick a game that can work for the environment you're picking it in. Do the preparation, have like the canned speech, which I've really got down. Having done about 15 games of these, I have like a great canned 15-minute speech of how it works, the mechanics, like what the terrain is, the objectives of the game, and then get started and have them figure it out. And the last kind of tip is the rule of fun. We wargamers love to button count. We love to have like very explicit, complicated rules. But you as kind of a game master is a very different role. And I found this when I first started. It's not it's kind of like a lawyers and a judge. The gamers kind of want to get their interpretation of the rule, whatever it may be, for their advantage in the table, and you have to be kind of there to adjudicate between them. So really, I always announce this at the beginning of my games. I say the guiding principle of these games is the rule of fun. Will whatever interpretation that is reasonable of a player make it more fun or less fun? And we go with whatever makes it more fun. Or exciting, or you can call it whatever you like, but that's really kind of the emphasis of why you're there as a game master and what your role is.
I gotta say that I expected nothing less from you than that kind of description. I
Right.
think you really hit the nail right on the head. And I mean, I've run games at conventions, not by myself. I run with Adrian because Adrian is my guy who knows all the rules, and I can do all the theatrics and say, this is how we're going to do things fun, and the presentation and stuff. But you're right. Like, you have to keep things succinct. They have to be exciting. They have to be quick. You need to keep people engaged and all things that I think Test of Honor does well. But really kudos to you for picking up on that, because so many people don't. People who run games at conventions just don't understand how to do. And like when someone's flagging, has a flagging of interest, or to try to get people to come, the fact that you have both people who want to keep on coming back time and time again is really awesome. But then also that new people are willing to take a chance on you. It's huge. So I think that's pretty awesome.
And one kind of odd one thing I would really suggest, and this was so I made probably the questionable decision of going to Cold Wars, which was here in early March, just as COVID was setting in. I don't regret it. And a lot of people did come, and actually we had a very good time. I had pretty good turnout, but one thing I've recognized is that it's very hard kind of to stage manage things. And what I mean by that is, one of the difficulties is right in the beginning, where you don't know how many players you're going to get, and you don't know if people are going to show up. So, for example, I had 12 slots in every game. I had one game that had 6 players. I had one game that had 8. I had one that had 10, and I had one that had I played 5 games, so 6, 8, 10, 4, and then I had 20 people show up for one game. Because they had seen the Mountain Fort and they thought it was cool, and just had a lot of cancellations. So I think flexibility is really key. So a lot of us, we have our ornate scenarios, we have our grand plans, and we've spent all this time and energy setting things up. And it's tough, but you just kind of have to be flexible. So I tried to make the game just as fun for 4 players as I did for when I had the full stock of 12. And I think one of the issues that we get kind of caught up in as game masters is, I knew the time and the effort that I put into it, and it's tough to kind of see an investment. Or let me rephrase. It's tough to see your return on investment when you put that much time and in case a lot of instances money and effort into putting on a game, and then it doesn't go as you want. But I think the key is to maintain flexibility and to remember why you're there. Hopefully, why you're there is to put on. I like to call it facilitating fun. I actually haven't played a game at a convention in almost a year, because I've been exclusively running these because I enjoy running the games more than playing in them. And I think that's really kind of what your motivation is, or it should be your motivation, is to facilitate fun for other people. And part of that is remaining flexible as to what that can look like. Because I had a game with 4 players. 2 of them were actually little kids, and their dad and another random guy, and they had a blast. Like, they had a really good time. You just gotta and you kind of feed off that. And there's always gonna be a grumbler, like, especially if you get bigger games, there's always be someone who like doesn't get it, doesn't like it, and will just rain on the parade, and you just got to kind of focus on mitigating that and heightening the experience for everybody else. So that's one of the key. Flexibility is kind of my rule of operation.
Again, it's really good that you can do that because not everyone does. So there's a game master who I adore, and I refer to him as a superstar game master, and he hates when I say it. So that's part of the reason why I say it, but it's true that he is. Mike Payne, he runs games.
Yes.
Do you know Mike?
So regrettably, right about now, I was supposed to be running a game of Test of Honor on his, I think it's Hang 'em High or some
On
version.
Hang High, yes.
Hang High, yes. So he had a table that was supposed to be at Huzzah, I believe it's called, up in Maine. So I was going to my fiance and I were going to go. It was going to be a great trip, and then obviously everything got canceled. But yes, so I was introduced to Mike by York, and we were going to put on a game on his table. So yes, I'm familiar.
So Mike is a wonderful guy. He runs a lot of games at conventions, but what he does almost exclusively is he runs games for kids and people who are willing to play with kids, because not everyone is, as you were highlighting. And one of the things that he is great is he's super flexible, just like you, because kids will come up with anything and everything. I have two youngins, and I tell you, the things they say or do, I would never expect anyone to say or do. And they're only 5 and 1.5. So being able to kind of roll with it is really important. And it also extrapolates to older people as well. So the fact that you do that, it gives a better experience to the people who are playing the games. And I think that's huge right there. Just, I wish you were closer so I could play in games. And you were talking about how you don't get to play in games. You run them, and there's something there though because you're passionate about this, right? Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be doing it.
Right. So I do play. Let me be clear. I don't just have theoretical knowledge. I just don't play at conventions. I play in I belong to a group called the Metropolitan Wargamers over in Brooklyn, New York. So I live in Manhattan, which is why I have a small apartment and a very tolerant fiance with this.
I was going to say fancy pants.
Yes. So I am a corporate lawyer that is a litigation attorney here in New York. So if you couldn't tell, I'm used to talking quickly, loud, and hopefully on target. So that's my kind of background. Although I was into wargaming, I joke it's my longest running thing. I've been playing. I started with Warhammer, as many of us do, when I was about 10 years old, and I'll never forget this interaction. And my mother reminds me, as I was in a store called Harrods, which is a kind of a fancy department store in London, and they had a demo table of Warhammer 40K, and I played it and I loved it. Just rolling dice, moving figures around, all that other stuff. And so I got hooked. And then the guy leaned over to my mother, this was almost 20 years ago, and said, "You've started a very expensive path." And he was not wrong. So we all put our time and our money into things, and this is not a bad way to do it. So I still get to play. I still enjoy it. But no, it's I enjoy playing games, as I think everyone does. But I really enjoy kind of like I said, facilitating fun, because it's, for me, if I put on like these big games, and I try to run 4 or 5 games in a convention. I was going to run 8 at Historicon before it was unfortunately canceled. I did 7 last year. And I've done about 4 or 5 of the other conventions. So once society is back to being able to gather, look out for those at these things. But I think that's really the I'm able to have like 70 people have a good time, hopefully because of me and my efforts, and that really outweighs kind of the benefit of me going to play in other games. Though I tried, have a libation or two and play more casual ones with my associates after hours. So that's a good time.
I'm laughing inside a little bit because the things you say kind of remind me about when I go to conventions. So when I go almost exclusively, I'm going because of the show. And usually Adrian and I are going together, or we meet up there or whatever. And so he's tends to be like, okay, I want to sign up for all the games. I want to do all the things. And I'm the one who's saying, no, we can't do anything because like, what are you, crazy? We've been doing this for years. We can't do stuff. We're working it. And he'll give me a look, be like, now, John, I'm playing games. And I'm like, no, Adrian, we're here working. And so we work out this compromise. We're like an old married couple or something, I guess. He hates when I say that, but it doesn't matter because he's not here right now. And,
Right.
but like, so we do this thing. And part of it is that by working the convention and covering and all this stuff, just like you were saying about giving joy to all these people, that's something for me anyway that gets me excited about what we do, because I know then we have content that we can then share for others. And I think there's something really pretty incredible though about when you're a GM in a game and you can see people just kind of get into it when you don't have to handhold them with the rules anymore, and you can just see that they're going with it and they're taking it on, and just how much fun they're getting. That must be really make you really happy.
Well, yes, in two ways, and I'll say on that, and that's a lot of why I did Test of Honor and why I made kind of my own cheat one pager. Is the coolest thing is with Test of Honor is I've generally found that I have to explain everything turn one, or I explain everything. We start the game. People are like always, are this like, is it this? And they almost quote what I had told them in the beginning, and I'm like, yes, it's that. And then you have to be very patient, and like it's kind of like teaching anybody anything. You have to be like confirming and supportive and get that. And then they get it, and then they like by turn three, usually they're running the game themselves, and they know the rules, and they're looking at the modifiers, and they're doing everything, and they're running it themselves, and that's such a great feeling to know that you like taught someone a silly game thing, but still something that they're enjoying, and it's very gratifying to know that that works, and it's especially gratifying because I know that people then go buy it. So I'm lucky enough to work with, or not to work with. They don't pay me, and it's all labor of love. But so there's an outfit called Your Hobby Place, which is based in Martinsburg, West Virginia, and they also have a shop in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So if you're in anywhere near those places, go check them out. I've been going to Dave Fisher is the owner, and his son Chris owns the other one, and they're kind of one of the best hobby shops I've ever been in, and I've been in a number of them in my years. But they come to the HMGS conventions and they sell out, and that's really the cool thing is people go and they say, "Hey, I played in David's game, and this is fun. Can I get the rules or can I get the figures?" And it's really neat to see kind of a tangible. Or they go to your stall, which is things from the basement, and buy his stuff, and it's a really cool feeling to not only know that people had fun, but enough fun that they want to go spend their own money to buy it and do it again. And I think that is really the most gratifying sense. I really got to figure out how to get a cut of this stuff, but until then, it's a nice feeling to know that people are liking it so much that they go and spend their own money and their time to keep playing it, and they've sold out at every convention that I've run the game. So I'm willing to say that that's like the direct link because I'm the only one running Test of Honor. So I'm gonna claim credit for that. Dave may not agree, but too bad. So it works out nicely for me because he's not here either. So that's really the key in terms of figuring out things. Is it's gratifying in that people get it and people like it and people run it. And I'm hopeful that people in the future, pick it up and run their own games. And that's really kind of I don't really want the competition, but I don't really think anyone's going to haul a 70-pound mountain to one of these conventions. So I think I'm all right. And actually, that does remind me of one other tip. One thing that I found for convention games is kind of how to get attention, and it's two ways. One, people having fun, people will come and look at it, and then people will want to play in your games in the future. And two, if you have any kind of like showpiece, you don't always have to have the most beautiful terrain, you don't have to have the most beautiful figures, but if you can have one kind of like big thing that people can see and be like, I want to go look at that, they will come look at it. And I that's a very personal and very maybe perhaps prideful thing, but it's nice to have people come and like look at your table, even if they're not in your games, just to get attention and to get people to play in future ones. And so that's my other tip is to have just one kind of showpiece. And I know people have different budgets. I know people have different amounts of time they can allocate. But to get like one kind of big, like not showstopper, but like a thing that like can draw in focus and draw in attention is really valuable. And I found that with the Yamashiro because nothing much changed until I got that giant mountain, and then I had a giant mountain, and people came and looked at my table.
I'm just trying to imagine because after I saw pictures of your mountain, I reached out to Iron Hammer, and I said, "So what is it going to take for you guys to get me a mountain?" And then they told me, and I said, "Okay, then." And I was trying to think where would I put a mountain. And I'm looking around in my studio here in my gaming space, and there's some space, but I don't think I'd fit anything else other than that mountain. But you're right. You need something. It doesn't have to be big even, but you need something eye catching that's going to get someone to.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be huge. So I'm going to show you another picture. So this is my 5x5 storage unit in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So the mountain is actually that bubble wrapped thing there and leaning against the back wall. So it lives in that storage unit. And the thing I really got to tell people, and this is my biggest recommendation, is the cart. You see it there and you see it here. It's actually like $100 cart that I got from the Home Depot. It folds up, as you can see, and it holds about, I think, 600 pounds or some unreasonable amount of weight. And that's actually all the terrain for the last game there at Cold Wars, except for the mountain. The mountain didn't fit on the cart. That takes 2 special trips. So it's 5 storage boxes and then 2 pieces of the mountain. But if one sincere thing I recommend is getting a cart or what have you, because I found to my immense chagrin that the hotel, so the HMGS conventions are usually either hotels or convention centers. They have those, baggage carts, but they don't necessarily fit. So and I saw other people have this, so it's an investment. But if you have a car or a garage, I would suggest getting that. I don't remember what it's called, but just go to Home Depot and look at their carts. But that's my probably best investment I've made in the hobby in my time. Mostly because when I got the mountain from my fine friends in Iron Hammer, they drove it down from Maine to Manhattan the weekend before HMGS Fall In, and which was very nice of them. And I obviously compensated them for it. Just to be clear, this was not a free service, but a heck of a one, because I don't know how the hell you ship the thing. But getting it from the street into my Manhattan apartment, I live on the 22nd floor and there is a service elevator, but there are multiple doors in the way. I ripped a pair of jeans in the splits to open the door, whereas I now have my cart and I have ruined infinite fewer pairs of pants as a result of having to move this thing. So if you're moving your hobby stuff, it's something that's often not thought of until the moment. And I was lending out my cart because people saw it and it was helpful. But that's a plug for a Home Depot cart that I'm also not being compensated for.
I wanted to say that I also don't know how to get compensated for any of the things that I do, and then I instantly I happened to look out of the corner of my eye and saw stuff that I bought with the Kickstarter money, and I don't make money off of it. I lose money actually, but money does come in, and I think that'll happen to you too. So if I may give a tip to you that might be helpful, and you may have already heard this because I've done this ages ago on an episode of the show. Look at crowdfunding for yourself, because when you become popular enough, especially as a game master, people will be willing to support you on something like Patreon, where you might say, hey, I'm planning to do this for the next convention season or whatever, and you have all this stuff, but I need something, whatever it is, and I need to be compensated for my time, whatever. People care and they'll do it. And it may not be a lot of money, but whereas you're building up this reputation you have, and you have this following going on, and you're making a difference, it helps. And then also when you get really big enough, and I don't mean just you, but anyone, conventions become very amenable when they see how many players you got. So especially if you're doing 60 or however many dozens of players a weekend, that's a lot of paying customers to your convention, and they might be willing to kind of help you out with some stuff.
Right. So actually, I wanted to. That was a point I was going to kind of address later. So what you'll see here is a poster. You saw it maybe earlier on the actual picture of the thing, but it's the poster that I had worked up. So you see here with generous support from, and then you've got Badger Games, things from the basement, of course, foreground, Historique, which actually makes a great line of tokens. I use exclusively Historique tokens. Again, I just make cool stuff. Your Hobby Place, Iron Hammer Studios, Great for Now Games, the makers of Test Runner, and Trade Games Inc. So the reason these folks are on a poster is that I reached out to all of them and said, look, I run these games. I don't want you to pay me, but like, could you give me a discount on stuff? And they're actually very, like, you tell them what you do. Like, it's very strange because we have our influencer culture today. So I'm not an Instagram person at all. or promoting these people in really any sense, except that, like, I'm like, look, I'd like to use your logo. Can I put it on a poster? And can you, like, give me a discount on some stuff, or can you give, or more importantly, can you pitch it as, can you send me business cards? Can you send me like something to do? And they will work with you. And these are companies, and this is not saying that it will work. I don't want people to overwhelm them, but my pitch was like, look, I have a big table. Here are pictures. I have people come. Can I put your logo on this? Can you send me anything to promote the hobby? Because that's really the whole thing, is these people make cool stuff, and just getting these names out there, and like getting kind of the broader culture of the thing. Again, I'm not in any way compensated. I think the most I got was like 10% off, but I'm not complaining because it's still nice. Like, and it's just a good way to do these things. And I think that's really, so the other side of it is not just crowdfunding. I don't think I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter or crowdfunding. I think as a corporate attorney, I'm kind of stuck with funding things myself, but and I'm also quite all right with it. But that's just one tip for people with that, is that there's like, these companies are out there. They're often small shops. It's like people you can develop friendships with, and I know and have personal conversations with most of the owners of them. And it's just because I've run these games and I have their stuff, and it's just a fun kind of thing to make the contact with.
Well, I just want to say, never say die, not just for you, but for anyone who's watching. I also never thought I would do any sort of money making
Right.
anything
Fair enough. Right.
for it, and sponsors and crowdfunding. And I said, never, we're never going to do Kickstarter. Did a Kickstarter. We're doing another one in 2021. So
Right.
it's a thing. And you never know. And like you said, uh, it's to use business speak for people. It's an ROI. So if they're getting a good return on investment, you're projecting yourself out there, promoting the hobby, these companies, what they're doing, and if that's driving business to them, and especially if you can show that you're driving
Right.
business to them, then it ends up being worth it for them to give you a discount, or maybe send you a kit or something, or somehow promote you, right? Maybe through their own social media, or through a magazine or whatever. It becomes valuable in that way, and that can lead to more things and more things down the road, or not. You never know. There's no pressure on anyone, but if that's something one wishes to pursue, it's something you can do.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely agree. And I know we're running short on time because I talk too much and too long. But I do want to show some of my future plans, some teasers for future conventions for people that are watching that may want to stop by my games. I have a few pictures if people wouldn't mind. So I know that this is less fun, but we try. So the first one is Test of Honor goes to sea. So we've got one of the plans for next year, with the cancellation of Historicon. It may be delayed from Cold Wars to Historicon itself, but Trey Games produces a line of Japanese era ships. So this is one of them that's already in, that's fairly completed, that is coming along nicely. And these are my pirates. They were called Waco Pirates in that period. I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly. WAKO, but some pirates and then ships. So it will be Test of Honor at sea, which I'm very excited to run. It'll be probably about maybe half a dozen to 8 ships, and we'll figure that out. But I think that's a very cool teaser. And the next one, a little bit different. A Cold War goes hot. I'm a big fan of kind of the modern tanks, or the semi-modern, like 1980s. So this is actually a canal that was made for me by Take Cover Scenics, along with 3 bridge layers. And then this is my very small East German collection, almost entirely Battlefront Team Yankee models, although I'm going to be using a simpler rule set because, again, got to keep it clean, got to keep it quick, got to keep it fun. So those are the plans for the immediate future, assuming that anything actually does happen with conventions again. Hoping that those happen again. But so that's what's kind of on track for my games, in addition to the regular Yamashiro games. And also one other teaser, the friends at Iron Hammer Studio, makers of the Mountain Fort, are also making a Japanese feudal city and a 3x3, which is about the size of the top of the fort, pagoda monk temple. So it's going to be about 4 foot or 3 foot tall, in addition to being 3 foot by 3 foot. So you'll see it. It'll stand out. So just a few teasers of some things that I need to find places to put even in a storage unit.
I think you need a bigger storage unit.
Yeah, that's actually in the plan. So for Cold Wars, or excuse me, for Fallen, which is in October, the plan is to expand to a 5x10, which has been approved by the fiance, and thank goodness because I'm running out of space.
Um, a question for you, and it's probably too early to tell. Do you anticipate coming to Huzzah in 2021?
So we were planning to do it, unless I have a work conflict, which is always a great question in my line of work. But the plan was there. So I don't think I'll be bringing my more noticeable terrain because I think we were taking a plane or a bus, and I don't think I want to do that, or a train. Anyway, a mode of transportation that does not facilitate this thing. I've had to rent 2 minivans in Manhattan and then drive them to Lancaster to build the stockpile. But no, so I was planning on bringing a bag of figures and running my game, and I'm still planning on bringing a bag of figures and running my game in 2021.
Awesome. And if you have a quick moment, we have some comments and questions in the chat, if I may share them with you.
Please.
So we have Jorg Bender saying Test of Honor is a great game. And then correcting me that he did not do Yamashiro Mountain Fort as a Kickstarter. I just think he does everything as a Kickstarter because he's that good. And he is.
Great. He makes great stuff.
And then also he has some praise for you. He says David is doing a lot of things right as he won multiple HMGS awards, including Best of Show. Funny how you didn't mention that.
Well, you know.
I know. But that's pretty amazing. And then we have Serena here wants to know what has been the funniest thing to happen while you were running a game. I feel there's a story.
Fiance.
I thought it might be.
Yeah, so that's funny. The funniest thing, I think the thing I enjoyed the most, and this goes back to having kids, is I created kind of my own rules for cannons, and because cannons are fun, and at that time they weren't particularly good. So I put 2 of them in towers and just let them go. And there was about a 10-year-old kid who was enjoying the game, playing the rules, but kind of quiet. But the cannon in the prior 3 games had done nothing, and it missed every shot. It did whatever. I think my funnest moment was when a kind of competitive guy across the table. Not only did the cannon hit, it wiped out an entire unit of ninjas and did the most of any of the, like. It's been in 10 games. It's never done that much, but this kid just came alive at the idea of. We were like, yeah, roll for it, and then he rolled like the best roll you could get, and they were like, great, that's a dead guy. Rolled it again, and then he got very excited. So just the opportunity to build kind of the fun moments with people. It doesn't have to be a kid. It's easier because they're happier as human beings. But I think that's my favorite recent memory in terms of fun.
Awesome. And then we have Michael here saying flexible GMs should be part of the training for GMs. I agree. Wholeheartedly. And then we have a friend of mine from Norway, Jamie, saying, been off and on watching this through the evening. Really interesting conversation. Thanks. For those who don't know, Jamie also does. He's my show notes scribe. He writes all the show notes for Wargaming Recon. Make sure that I don't look like an idiot in writing. And Michael says if virtual gaming actually becomes a thing, then some sort of pay-to-play thing could become an option. That way the GM makes something for all their work and people get to play and be safe. And I will say this is a thing in role-playing games. So there's an organization called Rising Phoenix, Dark Phoenix Games. Sorry, Rising Phoenix is a convention that they were going to do, which has been postponed, where they have a stable of game masters who run a variety of role-playing games and other games, party games for corporate events or whatever, and you pay for the game master to run it. It's not something you see so much with historicals or miniatures, but it's absolutely 100% a thing. You can make an entire career being very well paid as a really good GM for role-playing games. But I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. So I had actually, unfortunately, all my terrain, as I said, is in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So, but more is coming from Iron Hammer. And my plan, once I get some of that, is to maybe run a small game. So if I have volunteers, I will be making a post in the Test of Honor group for people to try a kind of virtual game to see if it works, and we'll see if there's interest.
And also, I don't know how much you'd be open to this, but people have been having some really good luck with Tabletop Simulator. I know that was being run earlier today for Battle Group, and It looked gorgeous. So that's something, should you ever decide you want a new thing to tackle and try, you can do where it's completely virtual and you don't have to worry at all about
Oh,
having
okay.
miniatures with terrain. So just an option out there. Any last tips or tricks you want to share while we wind this down?
So I'd like to first say thank you very much for this and to letting me wax poetic. It's always dangerous to give a lawyer a microphone, especially so for an hour. And I appreciate the flexibility with the videography or whatnot. So thank you for hosting me. And I'll close on this. Remember, it's fun, or it's supposed to be fun at least. And if you're not having fun, reevaluate what you're doing. And I hope to see people on the tables once tables become something we can have again.
Awesome. And so until then, if people want to keep up to date with what you're doing, what's the best way for them to either get in touch or to see what you're doing maybe online?
So yeah, this was my closing slide, but it's kind of weird to do it this way. So I'm happy to have people email me. It's david.hill.iv@gmail. I know that's kind of an archaic way. I should be more slick in my branding. We're working on that, but because I don't sell anything or really, do anything important, I haven't really made the effort yet, but we're getting there. So if people want to shoot me an email, or find me on Facebook, please reach out. My Facebook is David F. Hill the Fourth because I am fancy, and that's what we do. So either of those things, please reach out. I always love to talk about the hobby, love to talk about things, and look for my games at future conventions, always under my name, David Hill. And look for Test of Honor. We'll be doing more of it.
Awesome. Well, I want to just thank everyone for taking the time to be here today for this session here at Let's Roll Con. Don't forget, there are games going on. So if you've signed up for any of them, great. You can still sign up, I believe, for some more games that are happening later on tonight. There's merch you can buy. You can go on over and shop at the vendors. Things in the Basement is doing 20% off. Foreground's doing 20% off. That was announced this morning. So that's really
Ooh.
cool. So you can get stuff there. And then if you make a donation, we're raising money for the Extra Life charity. Extra Life is a charity that helps kids who need medical care and can't afford it. Their families can't afford it. Extra Life pays for it. The kids and their families never see a bill. So we're raising money for that. And if you happen to make a donation of $10 or more, you can, this is the last moment to do it. So you got to do it right now. You can have a chance to win something really cool, which will be revealed in the next event that I'm doing any moment, where I'm going to talk with Brianna Richardson of the Fabric Treasury about cool stuff that she does, dice bags she makes. You should get some dice bags, Dave. Just saying, David.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
you
need
want to
that.
get
Yeah.
some. They look gorgeous. They do custom work, and you might be able to win some cool stuff.
Oh.
So you can do that, and then we have some more events happening later on. So thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, David, for being here today.
Oh, sorry. This is the neat T-shirt that was the Yamashiro T-shirt that was made for me by Petra Bender, who you'll be having on later. Had to show it off. So
Oh, that is
thank you all very
gorgeous.
much.
Very cool. So
Yeah, it pays to know people. They make you nice things.
It really does pay to know people. So I will catch all of you in the next session.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.